99.7% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the 17th. That means today being the 28th, most of us have gone back to our old ways, our old habits, and procrastination. And at the beginning of last year, I had done the same. But prior to giving up, I had made big plans. I was gonna get into the best shape of my life, stop being a lifelong picky eater. I was gonna pursue social media, surf a 20-foot plus wave, and try to conquer a long-standing health anxiety and fear of the doctor. Well, instead of working on any of this, I ended up spending 6 months partying, smoking, drinking, and doing pretty much everything else except for what I set out to do. I was chasing easy dopamine highs and covering up deeper issues with quick fixes. I will add that the end of a long-term romantic relationship probably fueled a lot of this, but I'd kind of been aiming for this path for a while. By August, I was unemployed, unmotivated, drinking and smoking almost 5 or 6 days a week on average. I will say though, by August, by that point, I had made some headway on one of my resolutions, and that was my diet. You see, my entire life I ate a super limited diet. Think bread, cheese, and sprinkle in some fruit. I mean, really nothing else. No meat, no eggs, no salads, no vegetables, no this or that. I was a super picky eater. Wouldn't even eat like a pepperoni pizza. I absolutely loathed myself for this relationship with food, and I was downright embarrassed by it. Finally had a mentor call me a bitch for turning down a home-cooked meal, and then I tried Chinese food after being peer pressured to, convinced that I would hate it, and then I ended up liking it. I don't know how it took this long, but I finally had it click in my head that I was probably completely wrong about food my entire life. And it was like instantly rapid progress after that. I fast forward to today, I genuinely enjoy eating and trying anything new. Around the time that this food renaissance so-called was peaking was when I was moving out of my old college home, and I was saying goodbye to some of my best friends in the world. This kind of reinvigorated the drinking and partying because it was like the end of an era, and it was really difficult to let go of. We had some of the best years of our life spent together in this house, and we were all going our own ways back home to adulthood and uncertainty. By the end of July, I was sick and stranded in an empty college house with a broken down car, sleeping on like pieces of a couch that was left behind, and just miserable. I think I finally had hit rock bottom, and I was in a lot of ways glad to have finally gotten myself there. And I think part of it was intentional, that I was doing a lot of self-destructive things to kind of get myself to the point where I was like, I needed things to get bad enough to where I would really make a change and stick to it. Because a lot of times I think when things aren't so bad, it's easy to just continue going how we are. Once I got back home, I committed to doing Sober August with one of my good friends. We're like, okay, we're gonna do a month sober. I'm gonna start posting videos. So I started posting Instagram and TikTok videos. I just was like, I need to make a change. I need to turn the corner. And the videos really did not do well. They didn't go anywhere, take off, do anything, until I made a commitment, and I figured, why not kill two birds with one stone? I'd always wanted to live in a van, to travel and surf, and I'd always wanted to surf Mavericks, although admittedly I never thought I really would. So I was like, all right, well, let me just make a video series and I'll train to surf Mavericks, and then I'll also get this van, and I'll be doing things that I never really thought I would, that I always talked about and wanted to. So what could go wrong? Now, as we all know how social media is, so my own self-doubts and anxieties ended up getting reflected right back to me through the surprising amount of hate and negativity I received at times about like, you're not going to be able to do this, you're just doing this for the wrong reasons. And I had to question, you kind of internalize a lot of those things, and I was like, it really got to me, and I was like, am I doing this for the wrong reason? But deep down, of course, I knew I wasn't.
How was Mavericks? How was the big surf of Mavericks on? This is KCAL9 reporting live from Mavericks.
And admittedly, it was a lot of pressure to be like, hey, here's social media. I'm going to go surf one of the largest waves in the world, and I'm going to share it all with you. Like, there's a lot of pressure at times, especially when people start talking about you, and you're like, okay, well, I really need to show up and do my best. So it kind of fueled the fire a bit, though, where I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in. I'm not going to half-ass this. I'm going to train as hard as I can. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I'm going to do the best I can once the opportunity presents itself. So I got to training, and I got my head down and learning everything I could. And this brings us to the end of August, when I had my biannual cardiologist checkup. And so I was born with a heart condition where I have a bicuspid aortic valve, which basically means my heart has to work a little bit harder, and that I'll need that valve replaced probably a few times over in my life. So I've grown up knowing this, but really since high school I lived with a super extreme anxiety about the doctor, about health, about all of this stuff, because I pretty much felt like I was living life on a 6-month lease at a time. I felt like I'd go to the doctor, they'd say, okay, you're good. All right, keep surfing, keep doing your stuff. I'd go do my stuff, And then it'd kind of be like, okay, is this the time that they're going to say something's wrong? And am I going to be able to go back to doing what I love once I have the surgery? And, you know, all these anxieties and things fill your head, of course. And it brought me to some really, really dark places in the past. And that was one of my resolutions for 2024 was like, I need to get on top of this fear and I need to face it head on, because if I don't, I am going to lose to it. So I don't have a therapist or anything like that, but I've realized exposure therapy was probably my best bet. So I kind of just, brought myself into that setting a lot with the tools, whatever it is that I was afraid of surrounding the doctor. And I just kept doing it and kept facing it, and it got easier. And it got to the point where, like, last few months, I've hardly thought about it. It went from something that would plague me every single day. I'd be shaking, chronically anxious, and unable to catch my breath, just doing nothing because I was so fragile and so worried, to where I don't even think about it for weeks on end, and I feel great. And there's no shortcut to feeling great. If you're struggling with anything like that, like an anxiety or a fear, the only way past it is through. So it's not easy. It takes a lot of courage to anyone that's going through something like that in any way, but you can do it. I mean, if I could face it, you could face it. We could all face it. That was a huge resolution and something that I was super proud of myself for facing head on and kind of getting some closure with, I think, some of the PTSD and trauma that I'd kind of put myself through this anxiety. It was a really good turning point in the year for me. So then I was like, okay, I've got a couple months and we got to train and, surf the biggest wave of my life. At this point, it was like, okay, I'm pursuing social media and it's actually kind of taking off. I am getting into the best shape of my life. I'm eating all these new foods that I never ate. And I've just kind of conquered this super deep-rooted anxiety. And it's like, okay, the last thing on this list is to go surf a giant wave. Now, I got a job in September and I just kept working. I was filming, making videos every single day, and just learning everything I could about big wave surfing, water safety. I did some rescue courses, so I did with Big Wave Risk Assessment Group and the Mavericks Rescue Team, and learned a ton of valuable information, met incredible people and mentors. And I finally got that opportunity to surf Mavericks in November and December, and I've had about 4 or 5 sessions out there, and it's been incredible. It hasn't all gone to plan yet, but it's definitely something I'm working on and excited to do in the future. I've really kind of gotten to a level I never thought I would, and it's made me realize that I'm only at the beginning and there's so many more levels I can go to that I didn't even think were meant for me or achievable by me. So I don't know, this is probably gonna be a long video of me rambling, but I want to do YouTube, so I'm gonna just put my head down and figure it out this year. But I'm super grateful to anyone who's here, who's supporting me, who's watching. And I hope anyone that watches my videos or has seen kind of my own journey and my progression, that you can do probably a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And that if you really put the time in, focus on what you want, the universe will help you get it. 2025, I've got a lot planned, so I'll be doing these vlogs every single week, so please like and subscribe, especially if you've made it this far. I want to travel. I'm going to go to Portugal, I want to go to Hawaii, Bali, Mexico, and Alaska. Now, these are not all the cheapest places to go, so I'm going to have to try to work in the in-between and figure out how I'm going to pull these trips off for cheap, and kind of just dedicate this whole year to following my dreams, to try to make money out of YouTube, make it a career if I can, and social media, build a business, and surf. And that's what I've always dreamt of doing. I figure I'm 23, almost 24, so it's now or never. I gotta go for it. So hopefully we can make it. Hopefully it'll be entertaining and inspiring for some people, and I'm excited for the journey. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.